Hi, this is Terry Bach, and welcome to the Untapped Potential for Women Over 50 mini summit. So, for women over the age of 50, it's often a time of awakening, of really moving out of this fog, just kind of someday waking up and saying, it's my time now. I've been so busy taking care of everybody else, my family, my job, my business. What is it that I want to do for the rest of my life? So maybe there's something from your past that you've wanted to do that you just haven't gotten to yet. And maybe you have no idea what you want the next part of your life to look like. I've brought together some amazing experts on the topic of women over 50 and redesigning their lives on their terms. Each of these experts are going to be talking about this from their own unique and specific point of view. So today I've invited Hélène Stelian as our expert. Hélène, as a midlife empowerment coach, helps women who are struggling after the age of 40 and beyond. Women who often wonder, these women often wonder, are the best years of my life already behind me, or what's next for me? So she shows them how to put themselves first, reclaim their identity, and figure out what's next, and feel really excited about their future. She coaches women primarily through her signature 6-week Discover Your Purpose group program. So welcome, Hélène.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks so much for having me here. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So I was so excited when you invited me to join your summit.
Thank you. I've been following you for a while. You do a lot of work on Facebook too, and I see a lot of your lives and all of that on there. So now I know that you talk about midlife as being really ripe with possibility, with opportunity. But I also know that there are a lot of challenges in midlife. So could you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, thank you. So if you think of midlife starting around 40 or 50, yes, it's going to be a really challenging time for most of us because there's going to be an overload of demands and a lot of change, a lot of transition going on in midlife. So I think about it as a perfect storm, if you will. And what are we talking about here? So a big one, empty nest, right? Kids are leaving home. Oftentimes school, work, whatever reason, they're grown, they're getting out of the house. Our parents are aging. I mean, there's a reason we're called the sandwich generation. We're often still attached, helping our kids, but at the same time, our parents are aging. And if we're lucky to have them still alive, they're going to need our support, maybe whether it's financially, with their health or whatever. We will often experience at the same time the death of a loved one, and oftentimes it is our parent. It's an interesting time because with a parent gone, I don't know if you felt that. I still have both of my parents alive, but when I talk to my friends who've lost their parents, it's kind of like an awakening. Like you've got to come face to face with the fact that you're the next in line, right? You're now facing your own mortality. You're kind of like the matriarch of the family.
That's
right?
exactly what happened in my life. My mom died 2 years ago, and that's when I really had this awakening. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not really happy with the course that I've been on for the last few years, at least. And so, it's time to wake up and figure out what I want next. Yeah.
And there's more. I mean, there's marital strain. Oftentimes, especially after the kids leave home, you may look at each other and say, I don't know, do I want to spend the rest of my life with you? There may be, we talk about gray divorce. I mean, there's a lot of separations, affairs, all kinds of things happening in marriages in midlife, where you've got to make a decision as to whether you are ready to continue investing in this relationship. With work, if we've been in a particular work environment for a long time, it may get harder to advance at a certain point, so we may have challenges around that. Or we may kind of be bored with our work and feel like, is this really what I want to keep doing? Or for those of us who stepped away from work, reentry is a challenge, especially for many women who are looking to maybe go back into the workforce, but maybe they took a break to raise kids or for other reasons, and now are finding it challenging to go back in.
Right.
So that's a good one.
Yes.
Oftentimes, there's also loss of community in midlife. So our friends maybe are moving away as they kind of decide, to downsize or move somewhere else, or we maybe do. And so then we've got to figure out, okay, well, who are my people now in my new community or without my best friends around me? And then
Exactly.
there's a lot of health stuff going on, right? So there's physical changes due to aging and menopause, whether it's some weight gain or sagging
Mhm.
skin, hair loss or gray hair, or like vision and hearing start to be impacted, aches and pains. It gets harder to recover from illness, health issues and scares. I mean, we're at a higher risk of medical illnesses like diabetes and high cholesterol and heart disease. And then there's cognitive and emotional changes too. Memory lapses. I don't know about you, but I'm, sort of walk into a room and I'm like, wait, what was I going to get? So,
Yes.
um, or I'm blanking on someone's name. This gets harder and harder. Like even like a neighbor that I'm like, wait, what? Like I've known them for years, but like
Exactly.
their name. And then there's anxiety and depression that kind of can get worse in midlife. So, and that could increase, there's an increased risk of addiction with this. So, especially if we're
Oh,
trying to numb our distress by overeating or drinking too much or getting hooked on some painkillers. So there's
right.
a lot of potential stressors in midlife. This is why I call it the perfect storm, because there's so many potential ways in which we're going to be impacted and stressed by all of the things going on at this time of life.
Wow. Not a pretty picture there. So with all of those challenges, all of those stressors that you just talked about, um, how do we kind of change that around to look at this next part of our life then with some positiveness?
Yes. Well, there is a bright side to midlife. So I
Good.
know the big picture, right? And what's interesting is I'll bring up one piece that's about the U curve of happiness, because it'll kind of show you how we do come back up around.
Okay,
There's
good.
extensive evidence that happiness follows a U curve. So the lowest point is in midlife. And then, though,
Oh,
it climbs back up into old age. So, with all the challenges we've talked about, of course, no wonder, right, that we're at the trough of the U curve
right.
here. And interestingly, this is not a US based statistic. This has been shown in 72 countries. So in
Oh,
the US, it's been shown that happiness peaks at 20 and then again at 70. So the question, of course, is, well, wow, okay, so why do we become happier after midlife? Midlife has all these stressors. It's like, oh, we're down and
right.
out. What happens? So the theory is that eventually we come out of this because we're coming to terms with our own regrets. We're letting go of unrealistic dreams. We're finally owning who we are. We're
Yeah,
changing our expectations. And so in so doing, we're finally at peace and free to focus on what really matters to us. So that's the good news. If you're feeling low in
right.
midlife, there's really nothing wrong with you. Like you're not alone. The midlife malaise, as we might call it, is common and normal stage of life, and it's going to get better.
Yes. And so that's kind of the bright side of midlife that
Uh,
I think
yeah,
I read just recently too, that even after 50, we start kind of getting, we don't have as much pressure on us. Yes, there are
yeah,
some things that we have now that we didn't have when we were younger, but there are also a lot of things that we're letting go of.
absolutely. Well, first of all, the other bright side is that we have more time. So in 1960, which right now we'd consider midlife, women in the US on average lived until age 73. So in
Okay.
2015, that life expectancy was 82. So that's an increase of 9 years, in
Right.
just 3 decades. And the US Census Bureau predicts that by 2030, the number is going to go up to 84, and by 2060, 87. So we have these additional years of longevity that we can take
Yes.
advantage of. So to me, that's a really bright side of midlife. Midlife is not the end of life. Midlife is we have a whole bunch of decades ahead of us, right? And we're
Yes.
not, these decades, these sort of bonus years are not coming at a time of disability and decline. We're
Right.
actually extending the middle years, that middle part of our lives is growing. So it's after sort of the raising families, building careers, but it's another sort of what they're calling, a lot of people are calling an encore adulthood. It's like a second adulthood. And it's
Wow.
a very interesting time. They're saying might be spanning the years like 55 to 75.
Mm.
So if we think of the first phase of midlife as being like 40 to 55 and allowing for the idea of a second middle age of 55 to 75, that's a couple of decades when we can be really,
Exactly.
thrive and find new things to do. It's not a time for retirement. It's not a time to slink away. It's really a time where we can thrive and be vibrant and embrace life. So that's one
Right.
bright side. It's just that we have a lot more years. And the second bright side I want to give you
Mhm.
is just like you were talking about, we're so much wiser. We're so much better equipped to handle the challenges of midlife. We
Yes.
have 4 or 5 decades behind us with skills, with knowledge, with strengths, with wisdom to guide us, and just social connections to lean on. We're usually more financially stable at that point, and we've built up that resilience so we're able to handle whatever those crises, those challenges that midlife throws at us, those stressors. We're able to handle them so much more. And I think knowing that life goes on despite losses and setbacks, we know we're going to make it through whatever stress midlife brings to the other side, and really to build a life that we love.
Exactly. So we've heard about the challenges and the extended midlife piece, which is really hopeful. Um, what are some of the opportunities that you see for women in midlife?
Well, the biggest opportunity, and I know this is critical to you too, and you talked about it in your opening, is for us to focus on ourselves instead of everyone else. So
Exactly.
that's why I love that sort of the idea of it's your time. In our adult lives, many of us, as you mentioned, put ourselves seconds to the needs of men
Mhm.
and children, and work and everything else going on in our lives. And many women that I work with and I come across will come to see midlife as a turning point for the better, sort of an
Mhm.
optimistic stage of life, full of potential. So in midlife, we have a real opportunity to focus on our own needs and desires, to become more independent, less people pleasing. It's a
Right.
thing we all struggle with at times. To let go of sort of external definitions and pressures around our physical appearance, right?
Mhm.
To accept ourselves in all our wisdom and despite our flaws, because we all have them, to invest in our self-care and personal growth, to find our voice and the freedom to express it. So women feel they finally have permission in midlife to live authentically, to be all that they are. And the challenge, though, is to embrace that freedom, because if you embrace it, then the new confidence and creativity allows you to take so many more risks. So it no surprise to me, and I interview a lot of women who have reinvented in midlife, that women make dramatic changes in midlife. I mean, they go back to school, they start new businesses, they really dig deep into advocating for a cause, they embark on new adventures, they explore new passions, they leave stale marriages. So the
Right.
research
Yeah.
really has shown that women who embrace the opportunities of midlife enjoy more fulfillment and well-being than ever before.
Do you find that women, I mean, it is a time for a lot of change. Do you find in your working with women that a lot of times um, it's really hard for them to make the change because change is hard for a lot of us.
Yes, change is so hard, and it is, and we're sort of programmed to get in habitual, right? Get into our routines. And
Exactly.
the key with change is to make it less overwhelming. So it's really about baby steps. It's really about feeling the water. It's really about just testing things
Yeah.
out, trying little things. You don't have to reinvent. You don't have to start a nonprofit,
Right.
right? And that's something I always, especially in my group program, I explain, this is not about a wholesale. You're going to leave your marriage. You're going to move. You're going to start a
Right.
business.
Right.
Because it's a lot of pressure, and in the end we end up not doing anything. So it's really about taking baby steps and just having the courage to put yourself out there, get in, get a little uncomfortable, just a little bit,
Right.
a little bit
Yeah.
at a time. Then you show yourself who you can be through your actions. So, but if I do something that's uncomfortable for me and and it ends up okay, maybe it's, not fantastic, whether it's, reaching out to somebody who I met on a Zoom and I really connected with her, and I'm now going to call her and see if she wants to have a virtual coffee right now or eventually a real coffee.
Right.
It's kind of, that's could be a challenge, and but you
Mhm.
do it, and regardless of her response, you've either, gained a new friend, a potential new friend, or, the person doesn't respond, whatever, you now have done something brave. You have shown yourself, you know what, I can
Exactly.
reach out. I can, even as an introvert, I can, I can do that. So it's just about showing yourself who you can be and taking those little steps in whatever
Mhm.
direction you feel compelled to go.
And I think also having the support along the way, we're both coaches, but, but even finding a community of other women who are going through a similar change, I think is really, really helpful as well.
So huge. I mean,
Yeah,
community, I think is huge for women and in general.
I
But I
do
think
too.
midlife, it's so critical for you to have someone who has your back, someone who,
Mhm.
and to be able to call on. And I love just trying out a whole bunch of different communities. And before COVID, it was a lot easier. I mean,
It
I would,
was.
but even in COVID, there are so many wonderful organizations that are doing so interesting things and using Zoom and breakouts and even meetups going virtually and just finding ways to connect with other women. And there's great
Yes.
Facebook groups and so many wonderful opportunities for us to get to know other women and sort of challenge our perception of who our people are, because you may
Yes.
find, that you may gravitate toward new kinds of people and kind of open your heart to a whole bunch of interesting people in your life who might challenge you and might support you in a different way than you've experienced. So yeah, I find that which is why I love to work in groups, actually. And I've
Hmm.
moved away from working one-on-one because I have
Me
found
too.
the
Yeah.
group dynamic, right? The group dynamic, you get women together and it's like exponential. The
Yes.
support, the camaraderie, the inspiration you feel in a group versus the one-on-one, which can go really deep and is very,
It
one-on-one
is.
coaching is so important. But I personally am so jazzed by the connections I see people in the group making and the support I see people giving each other in the group. It's just
Exactly.
a wealth of warmth and connection that you cannot replace.
And I think for a lot of women, their support system, they need to change their support system to some degree, because those who were their support system may not agree with some of the changes they're making.
That's right. I mean, when you are taking
Yeah.
risks and when you are changing some aspects of your life, you may find it throws people off, right? You may find that
Sure.
people may
Yeah.
not be as accepting, whether it's family members or friends who are like, you're going to do what? And you're moving or you're getting
Yeah,
divorced
I
and you don't
know.
want to,
Yeah.
it's,
Because they
I
don't
think
like change
people
either. Yeah.
change, right? So,
Right.
so, so it's not change within themselves, but they see you make a change, and it
Right.
makes them uncomfortable. And what is it for our
Exactly.
relationship? And oh, I thought I had you pegged, and you were this kind of person, and now you're throwing me off. And what does that mean? And it makes people uncomfortable. And so, just be ready for the possibility that people may not. People may push back a little bit or may not be fully accepting or may not be really understand. And it's okay. Like, it's okay. Nobody,
Right.
it's your life. It may be difficult. And it's just about, really understanding who's going to have your back. And if somebody's really being, you know, detrimental to your journey, obviously this is where those toxic people, you need to figure out a way to have them out of your life or put boundaries around them if that's not
Exactly.
possible, because you
Yeah.
want to have your cheerleaders around you. You don't need
Yes.
the toxic or negative people who are going to bring you down. I mean, this is your time to shine.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, Elena, I know that you have a free gift for our listeners. Would you talk about that?
Yes, yes. So I am a huge reader. I read hundreds of nonfiction books, and I love reading books about that pertain to women in midlife in particular. So I have curated the best of the best for all of you, and so I've got 25 best books for women in midlife. They
Nice.
cover a wide range of topics from menopause to self-care, ageism to career, purpose to mortality, friendship to love. And there's a few sort of wonderful real life anthologies, like real life stories in there too. So yeah, I'm really excited about this, and I hope your viewers will enjoy.
Thank you. That's very generous. And for our listeners, all you need to do is click on the button below this video, and it'll take you right to Hélène's free gift. Okay. So Hélène, thank you so much for being here and your great contribution to the.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's such a pleasure to be here.
And for our listeners, I also want to thank you for listening in on this mini summit. And be sure to stay tuned tomorrow. You will receive an email with our next featured guest, who will be sharing her unique point of view about redesigning and living your life on your terms. So until tomorrow, bye for now.